Medial here. So today I want to talk about and show you a couple exercises that you can do to really work to strengthen your hips and your pelvis so that you can get your hips to stop popping. So one of the first ones is squats. I love squats, and even more than squats, I love squat pulses because it's really good to work on creating good stability for your hips and your pelvis. So when you're doing squats, make sure, number one, that you're zipping up and lengthening up tall through the top of your head before you lower down, okay? Then the other important thing is making sure that we're working and moving through a range of motion where you can feel connected through your glutes, through your hamstrings, and in your hips, right? So we're just moving up part way, controlling and controlling it back down. So zipping up and controlling it back down. So moving nice and slow, connected. Really think about what are your toes doing. I love doing these in the house barefoot with my mat so you can feel some of that connection underneath your feet, and then just nice and slow, going up and down. So we're working on strengthening our hips and our legs. Now I'm gonna show you from the side, because one thing with squats, right, is we tend to either want to overarch and dump into our back, or we want to tuck our booty, right? We don't want to do either one of those. We want to find a nice neutral position and lower down. So you have a little space in your lower back. You can feel pelvic floor more easily, and then we can work up and down in a control range, okay? The next position that I like is a medial squat, okay? So you have the option to either do parallel, feet like hip width apart, right underneath your pelvis, or I prefer rotate it in if you can. So it's something I recommend to try, at least give it a shot. Now, when you're doing this, make sure you never have any pain in your low back. If you do, you're not doing them correctly. These are really, really good for keeping your sacrum balanced and strengthening those hips. So feet are slightly rotated in, and you're gonna press into your heels. So we're really getting this good connection in the outer hips. I'm turning to the side so you can see this more easily. So we're getting, we can feel like heels are pushing down into the mat and pulling away from each other. So we're feeling this good connection in our outer hips. And then we lower partway down and we press. We're zipping up at the core, we're getting the hamstrings to activate and getting the glutes. Okay, so doing, 10 or so reps here, but notice my range is small. Now, if we start to feel it in our back, we might be dumping into our back, so we're not having enough stability in our core. And again, make sure you're not tucking your pelvis here, because it'll go right to your back as well. We want to be using those hips, okay? So it's a really good series to do back and forth. Do wide and do in. You could do it a couple times. And another one, I'm going to use my Cadillac here because it's here. You could use your chair, use a countertop. Countertops work really, really well to do some hip strengthening exercises. So if you're facing, you got your countertop here, chair, or you happen to have a Cadillac at home too, you can use it just to help stabilize you. So your core is on. Now, when we do single leg exercises, so many times we're focused on the leg that's going out, and well, yes, we are working that. We also want to make sure that we're focusing on what's happening on our standing leg, because there's a lot of connection and strength that we can have on the standing leg as well, okay? So we can be doing where you're zipping up with your core. Watch your foot. Try to make sure it's fairly straight, pointing towards your countertop or a chair. Make sure it's not overly rotated out or in. And then we want to pull up through that right leg and feel like we're wrapping around that right hip. And then we're going to lift that back leg up. We're going to hinge on forward. Now, of course, if this is too much to stabilize, you're welcome to keep this back leg down for a little support. But if you can, try it up. And when we're doing this, right, we're lengthening through the back leg and we're going to rotate this way. So this is why it's good to have something to hang on to. This is really hard to do without. Do it if you can. Otherwise, I would say to focus on the hip, you want something to balance. Then we're going to rotate in, and we're kind of pulling that right hamstring and hip up. And then we're going to zip up through our core. And we're going to wrap around that right hip. We're zipping up our core. We're reaching long through this side, always finding long lines and space through our body. Inhale. We're going to twist. Think about pulling the right hip up. Exhale, zip. Wrap the right hip. Okay, I'm gonna show you, ladies, from the other side as well, so then release. So what I'm having you do basically is that ball and socket joint is we're moving it, we're trying to create space with length and with movement there, okay? So with the other leg, so left leg down, right leg is back, and we're gonna wrap around this left one. So we come on up, we balance, make sure this left knee, the standing leg is soft, so it really will help you. And we're gonna open up, reaching through the right leg, and then as we come down, the right hip drops down, but the left hip, you want to feel like you're pulling up through the left hip, zipping the core, and then wrap and rotate again. And then bring it back down. Good stability through that foot, zipping up the core, lengthening your spine, and open, and then bring that hip back and wrap. So we're getting a lot of stability, a lot of strength happening around the hips. And the more that we work on strengthening our hips, keeping balance through our pelvis, the more our hips are going to be able to do the movements of our daily life and stop the popping, right? So it just means that there's something that's not in alignment. So we're really working to keep everything as balanced as possible. Okay, if you ladies have any questions, please don't hesitate to leave them below in the comments. And if you're interested in learning more, please feel free to reach out, and you can find more about my programs and what I do on my website at ericazeal.com. Thanks for joining me today.